Hi, I'm Kimberly Washburn, Curator of Education at the Florence County Museum. Welcome to June's Family Day at Home. This month we're celebrating summer by making 3 exciting summer fun activities. This activity is called Pressed Flower Journals. We're going to be working together to create a journal to help preserve the beauty of summer. Have you ever seen a flower and just wish that you could keep it just like it was, perfect and beautifully open and in bloom forever? Well, it's impossible to do that, but it is possible to take cuttings of plants and flowers and preserve them through a method called pressing. The flowers gradually dry over time, and the colors and shapes of those flowers are preserved beautifully as dried flowers. Let's go through the steps to create our own pressed flower journals. So you are going to need to gather a few objects from your Family Day at Home kit. You have a piece of construction paper, 5 pieces of white paper, and 5 pieces of newsprint. You're going to need to gather all of those. You also have a rubber band in your kit. And you're going to need to also gather a few things from around your house. You're going to need a pair of scissors. You're going to need at least a pencil, but you might want some crayons or colored pencils, markers, any type of coloring supplies that you have might be useful for your pressed flower journal. You're going to need a paper towel or a washcloth that's dry that you can use to dry your flowers off. You're going to need to gather a few flowers from your yard. I gathered these from the museum's courtyard. And you're going to need some heavy books. Now, we're not going to write on these books or draw on these books, but they're definitely going to be helping us in the pressing process. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to first take our papers and fold them in half to create our journal. So the colored construction paper will be the cover of your journal. So you can go ahead and fold that in half. The short sides should be touching each other. Give that a nice good press. You can also go ahead and decorate the cover of your journal if you would like to. It's easier to decorate it before you bind all the pages together. So it can be something really, really simple. This example just says My Pressed Flower Journal, so I know exactly what it is. I've also drawn a few little flowers on it as well. So just a simple decoration is all you need. You also want to go ahead and fold your 5 sheets of white paper in half in that same way. So the short sides of the paper touching. Give it a good crease. And your 5 sheets of newsprint also need to be folded in half exactly the same way with the short sides touching and with good creases. Now, just to save time in our video, I've gone ahead and folded all of my papers. So all 5 of my white papers and all 5 of my newsprint papers are folded. So now I have sort of a collection of folded papers and I'm ready to assemble my book. Now, each little grouping of papers that we put together, we're going to call them signatures. Each signature or each little group of papers, a grouping of papers in a book is often called a signature. We're going to rest one folded piece of newsprint inside one of our white pieces of paper, just like that. So we have a piece of newsprint folded inside of one of our folded white pieces of paper. So I'm going to go through and assemble all 5 of my signatures, taking the folded piece of newsprint, making sure I can still open it up, and putting it inside of my white paper. And we should have 5 signatures or 5 groupings of pages. Okay. Now that I have all 5 of those, I'm going to just give them a tap on the table to make sure that they're all lined up very well. And I've got all 5 of these separate from each other. They're not folded inside of each other. I'm going to take these 5 signatures and put them inside of my cover and press it nice and tight. Your pages may stick out from your cover a little bit because there are so many of them, but that's okay. You can always trim that off later if you want. Okay, so now that's nice. All the pages, all the signatures are inside the cover, and I'm gonna just make a mark at the top, about a 1/2 inch in, and a mark at the bottom. You can measure this with a ruler if you want. You can see that I've just made a mark at the top and a similar mark at the bottom. And that is where we're gonna cut some notches. Those notches are gonna hold the rubber band binding in place. So I'm just gonna cut a little V shape. I'm holding it all together in my hand. You might need a grown-up to help you hold the pages while you do the cutting, or if the cutting is really tricky, then you might need a grown-up to get through all those layers for you. But we're gonna cut some little V-shaped notches out, just like that. So one notch at the top, one notch at the bottom. We're gonna take our rubber band, place it inside that first notch at the top, stretch our rubber band down to the bottom just like that. And now all the pages of our book have been held together. You can fold over your pages at the rubber band or where those notches are. And when we open our book, we'll see we have a sheet of white paper, and then inside that we have 2 sheets of newsprint. This is where we're gonna sandwich our flowers when we press our flowers. And then we have another white sheet of paper. So that was our first signature. Then we see a white sheet of paper, then 2 sheets of newsprint and another white sheet of paper. That's our second signature. So what we're gonna do with our journal, let me show you how I like to use my pressed flower journal. I like to use my pressed flower journal to document what I found, flowers that I found that I really love, but also to document where I found those flowers and when I found those flowers. Because sometimes I think, oh, I remember this beautiful marigold that I saw, but I can't remember where I saw it, or I can't remember when I saw it. And the journal helps me keep that straight. So I've already begun one here. So you can see this is lantana, which is one of the flowers that I have right here. The lantana is from the museum's courtyard. I'm going to take off some of these extra leaves and extra buds, little flower buds that were attached, just because I only want it to be about like this. So I'm going to take off the extra parts of the flower that I'm not going to press. You can see these beautiful blooms have lots of really beautiful colors. It has reds and orange and yellow. And I want to dry off any water that is on the leaves. It's been raining outside the last few days, so your flowers might be a little bit damp. So while that's drying, in my notebook, I've written the name of the flower, if I know it, and then when and where I found it. So I wrote that this lantana was found at the Florence County Museum on June 8th, 2021. And then I drew a little picture of the flower, the way that it looked in the garden to me. Now, to press our flowers, to press your flowers, open up your journal to where you have 2 pages of newsprint. And you're gonna press your flower between the 2 layers, these 2 layers of newsprint. Sometimes it's easiest to let your flower be face down when you press it, because then you can arrange the petals the way that you want them to be arranged. If we leave it face up, sometimes when we close up our book, the petals don't end up laying the way that we wanted them to. So you can kind of bend the leaves where you want them to go, bend the flower the way that you want it to go. I'm happy with the way that arrangement looks. I'm going to go ahead and put that second piece of newsprint down on top, close up my journal, and I'm going to find that stack of heavy books, and I am going to leave my journal right under my stack of heavy books for about a week or 2. Now you can check on your journal, your pressed flowers, as they're drying. It can take a couple of weeks for your plant to fully dry, but When it is fully dry, it will be beautifully preserved to be able to be stored in your journal. Now you can always secure this flower once it's dried. You can secure it with a little bit of tape in your journal or a little glue, but there's one other way to secure it that I want to show you quickly. So you can even see the newsprint has started to absorb some of the moisture from my plant. You can also fold your newsprint in half and make some little cuts like this in your newsprint. Once your flower has dried, and then you can just place your flower. We're pretending our flower is dry now. You can place your flower right in these little slots to be stored more securely. Because my flower isn't dried all the way, it is falling a little bit apart, but you can see how those little slits that we created can hold our flower in place. So now I have the sample of my flower with the information that I've written about where I found my flower and when I found my flower, as well as my own garden drawing. Try to fill up your pressed flower journal with flowers that you find nearby or maybe on vacation this summer. This could be a beautiful memory of the summer of 2021.